This is SIFT TV.
I've been an Ali fan since I was a kid. I used to hand in little essays on Ali for no reason, not even a sign. I just handed them in grade 7, Muhammad Ali. So I was a huge fan as a kid. And then a friend of mine, Derek Murray, who is the producer of the film, got the rights to a book called Facing Ali, which is about 15 fighters that fought Ali. And it was a really enjoyable read. And he thought this would make an interesting movie, and he came to me because he knew that I knew a lot about it, and I made films, of course. And I said, listen, I'll do this film, but I want to pick the guys I want. There's a couple different guys I fought, and it has to have the social background, the social context in it, and that was really important to me. And I knew that if we got the 10 boxers talking their own stories, it would be complete, it would be original. And if we could get them to, and I didn't want a narrator either. That was a big challenge for 10 boxers, no narrator. I wanted sort of a Studs Terkel kind of sense of just a journalistic sense of what these guys' stories, and I don't know if a journalistic sense is right, but just their story. And so that's what I made sure I could do that, and I'm not sure anyone believed I could do it without a narrator, but we worked it out. The guys were fantastic, and so it's a really intimate portrait of these 10 lives, but we take Ali's journey through it, and you know, from his sort of meteoric rise, is being hated in the 60s, his rise into the 70s, mythologized in Zaire when he beats George Foreman, and then fighting too long, actually. So it was a bit tragic in that sense. And then, of course, what he's become, this incredible icon of so many things, some true and some not true, and some misconstrued, and some definitely what he deserves, because he was an amazing individual and is an amazing individual. So that's it. We just thought it'd be a different take with the 10 boxers. Absolutely. Telling their story. Most of them took really well to it, actually. I mean, there was a little more, sometimes a little more intensity, maybe with someone like Larry Holmes, by his nature. Right. Like, what about me, man? Or actually, he was more like, I'm not going to tell you my story, because that's going to come out later. Yeah, so that was cool, but we got him to do that anyway. Most of them, you know, Ali was the most well-known person on the planet in the 1970s. In the planet. I mean, he was loved in the Middle East because he's Muslim. He's loved in Africa because he's black, and he stood up to the empire here. He's loved here overall now. He was hated in the 60s in many parts of in America, but because he stood up and the cause became righteous about the Vietnam War. After a while, everyone's like, well, that's not a good war. So he's so loved everywhere that these guys, he's larger than life. So as soon as you step in the ring with Ali, your life changed. You were on the world stage. And all of them know that Ali not only elevated boxing, but elevated their paychecks. And he has a certain, I mean, Joe Frazier and Ali have had a difficult time in a certain way, of course, but for the most part, he's a very playful person. He's not a grudge-holding person. He's not a, once I fought you in the ring, I'm not friends. He's playful, and he's charismatic that way. So they all had including Frazier in our film, which is a really wonderful surprise, had a real affection for Ali. They just know that they were in the presence. They stepped on the stage, and like Ernie Shaver says, I'm in Madison Square Garden. My whole life changed. Leon Spink says, you know, you can try to copy him, kind of be like him, but you can't do it. But I'm fighting my idol, he also said. Everybody knew when Larry Holmes was fighting him as a sparring partner in his early years with Ali, and he says, I'm with the champ. It was like, it's unbelievable to him. He got a black eye and said, I could go home and say, look, I got a black eye from Ali. And so all of them, it was just elevated. And, you know, in his prime, Ali was an unbelievable fighter. Right. I mean, his style was, for heavyweights, it was totally original. It took a sort of Sugar Ray Robinson kind of speed and poetry about it, but it was totally original, and he was poetic, and he you know, he was the first real trash talker, but he didn't do it like now. He didn't do it for himself only. It was political. I mean, he was deeply influenced by the Nation of Islam philosophy, but more than that, in my opinion, by Malcolm X, which was colorful and vibrant philosophy at the same time, and it's a beautiful thing, you know. In fact, I wish they'd stayed friends long. I wish Malcolm X had lived and they'd stayed longer. I think he probably would have stopped fighting earlier. I mean, in my opinion. It varies with Frazier where you get him. We have a really rare moments with Joe Frazier where he's very affectionate about it. He gets teared up saying what happened to him. He actually starts to tremble. You can see it's shocking. You can't believe it. And then at the end of the film, talking about this guy, I wish he could be healthy like us. He's earned that. It's a really beautiful, beautiful moment. I think you can push someone as media. You can push them towards it, to being more being more aggressive about it and so on. So with Frazier, it was an interesting time. I mean, there's a film just came out on HBO that makes Ali look like, you know, it's a very negative against Ali, and it's not contextual. It's not a fair portrait of what happened. Ali fought for things that he took a beating for. And when he said, my name's Muhammad Ali, Kashikli is my slave name, for a brother not to hear that was a deep insult. He's saying, don't call me and you know, Joe called him Clay all the way through. They don't even mention that in the HBO film. They don't even mention that.
Say my name.
That's earlier with Ernie Terrell, but then with yeah, that's what's my name. But that continued. But with Frazier, that's by 1971 now, 1974 now, 1970. You know what I mean? So there was that for sure, where he says what he says in the film is quite aggressive against Frazier, but he's saying he's not calling me my name. That's my slave name. It would be like me, you know. It's an interesting thing, and that's your slave name too, Frazier, by the way, he's saying, you know, and that for him was not standing up for the cause on one level. And also Joe was not positive about his stance on Vietnam. So, and Ali took a beating for what happened in Vietnam. If you read some of the press, what they said in 1966, he didn't get the Fighter of the Year award in Ring Magazine. They said because he's a terrible example for the youth of America. Ring Magazine, not some right-wing paper, the boxing magazine. I mean, some things that Jimmy, I can't remember his name, but one press guy, it was brutal. You cannot believe he's saying these things. This guy's a disgrace. He's basically a deviant for what he's doing. Ronald Reagan said that draft dodger will never fight in my state. I mean, they hammered him, took his license away. I think he had to hold a lot of weight, a lot of pressure, and then he's naturally spouts off way too much by his nature. Ali does that by pushing a fight and also by being too cruel. He was too cruel to Frazier for sure, but that's part of his energy. And in the early days of his energy like that, I think it was fear-based. With Liston and stuff, he would pump himself up, and that's how he did it. And then he became sort of, you know, that became less about that and more showmanship and playing and that direction. So it's just the way it unfolded, you know. But there's a lot of give and take in that situation, I think. And Ali's had affection for Frazier for a long time, you know, for sure. It was a real honor to do justice of these 10 fighters. And when you say that left in the wake or pushed forward, of the 10 that we chose, 2 of them weren't in the book. Leon Spinks and Ernie Terrell weren't in that book, actually, and they were really, really important to this thing. Leon Spinks never gets a voice at all. He's always sort of missing in action. We don't see Leon Spinks, and he was so charming in the film, and this bear of a guy, you know. But the point about these 10 guys that we chose were the ones that did push him forward. Whether they pushed him forward by getting beaten or not was, you know, for political reasons that he fought in Canada. For Frazier was just a huge, mega meeting of problems going on in America at the time. George Foreman, he became mythologized by that. Leon Spinks, he lost to him and then had to come back. Larry Holmes, his sparring partner, and he fought too long when he fought Larry Holmes. He shouldn't have been fighting. So all of our guys pushed him forward. That was really important, to only get guys that somehow push the narrative of the story forward and to tell their story and to get the essence of who they were. And what I realized, and even last night at the showing, to see people laughing and really all the time in these different characters that we didn't see in a whole room before, laughing with them, not at them, and to see that they were such different guys. And one of the fears of doing a boxing film is you got 10 guys, you think, oh man, you're gonna get 10 hockey players, you know, going, yeah, we're just fight, we're just a team, we're just trying to do our job, and you know, they were so varied in their beauty and in their intensity, and they're older men now who live by their body, and the body's going. That's the nature of being a human being, and to see that vulnerability, and then to talk to them at length, and the stories about, you know, all of them where they come from, which is difficult for across the board. Virtually, they were, you know, in crime, and they were in, you know, one of them lost 3 kids to heroin addiction. George Foreman being born again. That's George Zavala, by the way, being born again. All these wonderful stories. You know, Ernie Terrell was a singer. His sister replaced Diana Ross actually in the Supremes, and all these different beings that were boxers. That I wanted to break the stereotype of who these people were. Because they're human beings, and they're not just thugs, you know, at all. They boxed because it was expedient and intelligent to become a boxer from where they were coming from, in my opinion. Right. Leon Spinks says, you know, they used to beat my mom used to chase guys with a 2x4 that were younger than me. I didn't like that, so I took up boxing because I was the punching bag in the neighborhood. I took up boxing, and everything changed. Yeah. That was smart, you know. It's called an intelligent decision, given your limitations under pressure, and they're all like that. You know, they all responded to their nature, their body type, and economic circumstances they were under, whether they were economically disenfranchised or racially disenfranchised, or both. They respond to that. He reached another peak with Zaire for sure, because he trained so hard and he was so ready for it and he was so mentally ready for it. But I think losing those 3 years were the best years of his career, in my opinion. He was slower when he came. George Chuvalo, we were lucky. George Chuvalo, the Canadian boxer, fought him before 67, and fought him in 72. So he said he's not as quick. That was a wonderful, the only guy on the planet to have fought him both times. He definitely lost. You can't leave 3 years of boxing and not lose a step. I'm getting older. So I think in some ways it's true. I think it pushed his career more forward, and it shifted the nature of his intensity, I think. I really don't think he trained hard enough in the later fights. And he played around too much. And as great as he was, you can't do that as a you can have an off night as a hockey player. You might get knocked on your rear end, As a boxer, you get punched in the head. Yeah. And so you can't take it lightly at all. And I think not with Zaire. He was ready for Zaire, and his intensity is so palpable at that moment. But I think even in the Thrill of Manila, he wasn't focused. And so it's this great fight, but in fact, he was not as focused as he should have been for that fight. And so I think it pushed things forward. He made a lot of money. He was able to make more money as he went on. One guy says when he fought Larry Holmes, $8 million, a lot of money. Who makes that kind of money? But you can even hear, before the Holmes fight, we have a little piece, you can hear him slurring already. He should not be fighting. In fact, his doctor, Dr. Freddie Pacheco, after the Shavers fight in about 77, I think, or it might have been 77, actually sent letters to Angelo Dundia's trainer, Muhammad Ali, and a few other people in his life and said, I can't do this anymore. He shouldn't be fighting. So he shouldn't have been fighting. But I think what you say is correct. I think it did push it farther, because you would have lost a lot of your energy in those 3 years. You would have fought a bunch of fights. So it would have been a shorter career. I think it almost started again. So maybe out of those 3 years missing, maybe the 3 years, and I don't know that. You would have fought in those eras, in those days, under the pressures of being someone who didn't want to go to the war, still all that intensity of life in the mid-60s. So that would have been a different thing too. He was out for 3 years, touring the college circuit and talking about war and stuff, trying to make a living that way. So yeah, that's it, But his arc as a human being, it seems both tragic and remarkably, Ali is so dignified in how he just goes out and does things. He just still does things all the time. He still travels like 150 days a year. You can't help but love Ali, because he's just got that heart that we all have felt, and even those that didn't like him in the 60s like him now, And then when you see Frazier in the tender moments, that Frazier's getting older too. He knows what it's like your faculties aren't as strong and so on. And I think that's what hit him in the interview. And it was so much fun interviewing Joe Frazier and being there with Larry Holmes and George Foreman and these 10 guys. All of them were actually exceeded expectations, and it sounds like a cliche, but really you don't know what you're going to get. And they were like, wow, that was a lot of great stuff, So I fell in love with those guys. They really were. They were like being with people you knew as a kid as idols and heroes and nostalgia, and then being respectful I'm younger than them, and being respectful as these guys that have lived through an age that I only know from reading about, really, So it was a great experience that way.
Thanks for watching SIF TV, your resource for all things SIF. And enjoy the 2009 Seattle International Film Festival.